Welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough review of Ango Episode 1. I promised all my subscribers I would do it. Guess what? I'm delivering. But stay tuned because I'll be keeping my comment and my rating at the end of this clip, so don't go anywhere. But let's dive right in. Now, the opening of this episode, we see a car flipped over. It looks like we're in the mountains, so I'm not really sure on the exact location. We see bodies everywhere. We hear the main character say, "Am I going to die?" And by the way, the main character is Yuki Sanjaro. First name Yuki, last name Shinjaro. So we're just going to call him Yuki from now on. And again, he's saying, "Am I going to die?" He sees a girl in front of him, but we don't know her name. She's really not introduced in this episode. And we hear another voice say, "You did die." And then the words Inga. And we have no idea what the words Inga really means or what that girl meant by "you did die." So that's a little scratch on the head there. Now, in the next scene, we're introduced to another character. Her name is Rie Kashuo, and she's actually the daughter of Renroku Kanjo. I hope I pronounced his last name right. And anyways, her father is actually the chairman of the Japanese Justice Network System and Holdings. So that's kind of interesting. So her father's pretty important. Now we see her getting ready for, it looks like a ball of some sort, and she mentions a 19th century ball gown she's going to be getting from a certain group. They're called the Kanoho group. So we don't really know a lot about this Kanoho group, although they were trying to, I guess, involve her father to come to their little gathering. But we find out that her father cannot go. Instead, he ends up sending his own daughter to become his proxy to this live event. Now we also find out the name of another character, apparently the family maid. Her name is Kasho, or Kishu. Hard to pronounce her name, but she's the family maid. But she doesn't really have a real role in this episode, so let's move on. Now, we also find out that this ball that's going to be happening at the Kanoho group is actually, looks like a masquerade ball, because he mentioned something about a costume party, so that's kind of interesting. Now, taking to a different scene, we see Rie's father, and he's got gray hair. He's got all these cool computers around him, so it's kind of interesting. He is a detective as well, I should point that out. I don't really know his real background in this episode or in this series right now of what he really does, other than his title of being a chairman of the Japanese Justice Network System and Holdings. Apparently that title carries a lot of weight. And again, he's sending his daughter to this event as his proxy. Now we're also introduced to yet another character. So I found this kind of interesting. So we have another character that enters the scene, and her name is Izumi Koyama. And she's actually a public prosecutor with the Joint Coordinating Department. Yet another thick title, so that's kind of interesting. And she's actually going to go with Rie to this party, act as, I would assume, her bodyguard of some sort. We're taken to another scene where now we see the main character, Yuki, and apparently his sidekick, or a girl that follows him around, her name is Inga. That was the name we heard at the beginning of the episode, so that's kind of interesting. So Inga is actually a person. And apparently we have Rie in an elevator with Kayama. And Kayama's like, "You may want to stay away from these people. They're a little filthy right now." And then you see Yuki kind of introduce himself, although at this point I think everyone already knows who he is. But he has the weird title of a defeated detective. That's what he's known by. He's a defeated detective. So we know he is a detective, but I have no idea the meaning behind why they call him a defeated detective. But later on in this episode, we actually find out. It's more of like an insult to people that really don't know him that well, but in reality, he's a really great detective. And this series kind of reminds me of Case Closed a lot. So if you've ever watched the anime series Case Closed, this kind of reminds you of it just a little. Now, after we leave the elevator, we see Rie and Koyama enter into the Kano group's hotel, apparently. So apparently this is where the whole shindig's going to be happening, at a hotel. And everyone's trying to, I guess they know that Renroku Kashu's here at this live event when he's really not, because his daughter's, which is the she's acting as his proxy, is like she's being introduced around to everyone, and everyone assumes that her father's there, and everyone's like, oh, so he's here to basically clear the name of the Kanoho group's president. Because apparently, this is what we didn't know at the start, the president of the Kanoho group is under, not indictment, I guess, but he's under the radar of the Justice Department of possibly embezzling funds. So that's kind of interesting. I should also point out we're introduced to two more characters. Apparently the Kanoho's group's two side members by the name of Kanda and Oni, they're dressed in Napoleon outfits. Kind of weird, two people dressing up the same outfit at a party. Kind of sticks out. But I digress. Let me go back to the party. Now we see Rie being introduced to the president of the Kanoho group, and apparently his name is Kanoho, by the way. Interesting. And his wife. They shake hands. Again, the crowd's all around them, and so they assume that Rie is actually her father. They don't really know that she's acting as the proxy, and they all scatter her around. Like everyone starts piling up around her. So then they're like, oh, then that must mean this group, the Kanoho group's innocent of all charges if you're here. And that really wasn't the case. And then you see Yuki jump out of nowhere to introduce himself to the Konoho, see, I can't even pronounce his name right, the group's president, to thank that guy for inviting him to the party. And that's really not what he was trying to do. He was trying to separate everyone from Rie, because it looks like she was being overwhelmed. So that was kind of interesting. Now, later on in the episode, we see Rie getting a little plastered. She dumps wine on her dress, and she has to go to the little ladies' room. But just before she goes, we're introduced to another character. If I'm correct, I always get her name wrong. Her name is Sujin Hayama, and she's the director of security. And she's also a Metro Police, so that's kind of interesting. But she's all in black. She's got black glasses on. She looks pretty cool. But anyways, she's also acting as a bodyguard for Rie, apparently. Anyways, Rie, she got slightly drunk. She dumped a little wine on her outfit, and she had to go to the little ladies' room. Now, while she's in the ladies' room, the lights go out, and the president of the Kanoho group appears on stage, ready to say something. And as soon as he finishes his sentence, and again, the lights are all out, and the little spotlight's on the stage, we find out he's been killed. There's a knife in his back, and he falls dead on the stage. Now, instantly, this is kind of interesting. Rie and everyone that was at the bathroom with her, they run out to the stage and they cut off the sections. They close down the place to make sure no one leaves. And she's like, someone in this room is the killer. I'm like, okay, so she's playing detective now, like her father, apparently. And she instantly says, well, the only people that were close to the stage that really stuck out, that really were, obvious to see, were the two guys wearing, she saw a guy wearing a Napoleon outfit. Now, there are only two guys that were wearing a Napoleon's outfit. Kanda and Ono. I can't even pronounce his name right. But anyways, two of the guys that worked for the Kanoho group were actually, one of them was seen in the front of the stage. So she instantly assumes that one of these guys must have killed the president of the Kanoho group. Now, that's really not the case, because each one of these guys can vouch for each other that they were with each other, so that's kind of weird. And again, something's up, but before we can find out what's up, Yuki's on stage, he's examining the body, and then Rie's father appears on screen. Like, right in the backstage, it comes down, he's got the cameras focused, he's checking out everyone, and he instantly assumes that someone in one of the security guards, the SP, must have done something. Because it's definitely not these guys that are dressed up in the Napoleon outfits, because it really wouldn't benefit them if they were to kill the president. So now we're left with one of the bodyguards are now being accused of possibly killing the president of this company. And then we're taken to a different scene, which I find this is kind of a fast-paced episode. We're now in a different scene, and apparently we have the president's wife. She's grieving, but they're in her hotel room, I guess. And now we saw Yuki looking at the body on the stage. Now he's walking to the room with the president's wife of the Kanoho group, as well as Rie and Koyahama. And this is kind of interesting because we see Inga, this little girl that's been following Yuki around, and she says, she's just going to go somewhere or something like that. She just kind of vanishes from the scene. And I found that kind of interesting. But we enter into the hotel room, and we're trying to make sense out of all this. And now we see another character appear out of nowhere with the name Inga. And Yuki, he's like, yeah, this is my boss. So now we know Yuki's boss is the evolved form of Inga? I'm like, scratching my head, I'm like, what? Now, this evolved form of Inga is an attractive woman. I'm like, she looks like a, I want to say, she's got like a black eye, not like an eye patch, but she looks like a Dalmatian. Do you remember those Dalmatian dogs, how they have spots everywhere? She's got one of those black spots on her eye. It makes her look amazing and sticks out. I like this character. Now, she's been introduced as Yuki's boss, so it's kind of interesting. And she approaches the president's wife, which is the Kanoho group's president's wife, and she asked her a question like, what did you really think of your husband? And apparently she's got like a Code Geass type effect on her eyes. You know, you see her eyes spark up, and she's staring, and the only thing you can really tell from what the wife's saying, she said, my husband was a hero. We do a flashback scene where we see that Japan, the small little part of Japan, was being attacked because of terrorism and whatnot, and her husband was the one that got relief funds from these other countries and brought supplies in. But then we find out after the war ended, because of him more or less, because he saved everyone, now that he has all this extra stuff, it kind of looks like he's embezzling funds and whatnot. So that's kind of interesting. Now we also find out, just prior before this, the president of the Kanoho group was actually asked by, I guess, one of his friends or one of these supporters or something from the government to hold the funds back for something. So that's why it appeared like he was embezzling money. He was asked to hold certain money back. So that was never, he was supposed to talk about this when he was on the stage, so he could free up all the suspicion of him not being him not embezzling funds. But that never saw the light, of course. Now again, taken back to his wife, she thinks he's a hero, and she's still very mortified. But again, we see Rie and Koyama, and they're very stunned about the answer she gives, because it's a truthful answer. She's like, I thought my husband was a hero. I knew he was a hero. I was like, wow. Now, Yuki puts two and two together. He actually finds out she wanted to preserve her husband and make sure he lived on as a hero. And at the same time, she wanted him to die as a hero, so the name wouldn't be disgraced or anything like that. So in this episode, we found out that there was an SP bodyguard that was killed in a bathroom. Now we saw the jacket was thrown one way, a gun was in the front, and it was kind of interesting. Now Yuki was putting two and two together, and this is what he came up with. Now, the president's wife was wearing a very thin dress, so she could actually slip it on and off and dress up as a security guard if she wanted to. And that's when it hit him, where's the proof that this woman killed her husband? Because we have a bodyguard that's dead, a husband that's dead, where's the evidence that connects her? Well, she was still wearing the pants of the security guard, or apparently she was wearing pants in general. She didn't take the security guard's pants, but she was wearing pants in general, shoes, so she was actually faking to be a security guard. So that's kind of interesting. And again, she was the one that actually killed her husband to preserve his name as a hero. But you have to question why she did it. A lot of questions why. But see, she knew everything about her husband, that he was a hero. Either way, his name was going to be dragged down the tubes if he was going to be convicted of embezzlement, and all of the stuff he's done would have, again, gone down the tubes. So instead of him going on stage and telling the actual truth, she killed him. Now, this would look like something different to everyone else in the crowd. They would think, well, this is a conspiracy by the government to kill someone, obviously, that must have been innocent. So that's what she was trying to make that out to be. It would have worked if it wasn't for Yuki picking all this up. Now, just as Yuki was solving this case and it's been solved, who would appear out of nowhere? Rie's father, Renroku Koshu. He pops up in the background. You see a little TV screen pop down, like a projection. No, not really a projection screen, but that was when he was on stage that happened. You get a phone call, and you see Koyama handing the phone off to Yuki, and Yuki picks it up, and I found this interesting. They're doing a cover-up right now. This is what Renroku was basically telling him. We're just going to do a cover-up, and you were right. And this is how we find out how Yuki gets the title of Defeated Detective. He's always going to be right, but there's always going to be a cover-up, apparently. That's how he gets this title of Defeated Detective. Now, in the next scene, after everything's been solved, and apparently the president's wife of the Kano group they're letting it slide. They're not going to convict her of anything. They want to make this appear like something else. So it was kind of nice of him. But we find Rie apologizing to Yuki, saying, "You really aren't a defeated detective. You solved everything, not my dad. I'm so sorry." I'm like, wow. So that was a lot of closure real quick all at once. And he's like, well, it's going to happen. Yuki's like, this is going to happen. This is why I'm here. So that's kind of nice. Now, the Inga we saw that was in the hotel room, the evolved form of the smaller Inga, I still don't know how that works out. She has vanished, and this little kid is back. And she's like, yeah, Inga went home. But that's where we left off with the episode. So I'm actually interested to see where this is going to go. I'd like to know more about Inga, as well as Yuki, of what happened at the beginning of this episode, like the big accident. So there's a lot of things I'd like to know right now. Also, maybe more about Rie's father. Renroku, what does he do really? I mean, he's part of the Justice Department, but he's taking all the glory from Yuki for what reasons? I want to know more about the connection between these two guys, Yuki and Renroku. But that's where we end the episode, and my final thoughts. So, let's see. Rating-wise, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Because it went somewhere, and I want to see where it's going to go. So, 4 out of 5. But again, that ends it for my review and walkthrough of Ongo Episode 1. Definitely stay tuned for my full review in the morning tomorrow, because I'm going to finish this real quick, because Ongo is only a couple episodes long, about 11 episodes plus an OVA. But again, I will put all my links down below, so check down below for all my links that I'll be adding, so you can find where this anime is at and watch it and check it out yourself. But comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above, and comment, and comment. And check me out on Twitter if you get a chance, and follow me if you want. But that ends it for today. Stay tuned for tomorrow for more reviews and walkthroughs. Before I go, I have to say it. Can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.